Chapter 26 of Stories Part 1. In some ways, Rarity felt like she were enjoying a cruise, relaxed on the deck with the afternoon sun warming her coat and the wind of travel toying with her mane, and the company of friends to keep a smile on her face. Pinky and Fluttershy were playing a game with Brownie and a pair of crew ponies, tossing a balloon between each other while the young bear tried to intercept it. Most of the crew still shied away from him whenever he and Fluttershy made an appearance, but they were beginning to relax after a few days of travel. Rarity didn't partake in the game herself. It was unbecoming for a mare of her station to be seen playing with common air ponies, or so she was happy to let them believe if it got her out of it. She would hate to work up a sweat on a ship that lacked the amenities for a shower. So you see the issue then? Whitehorn asked from beside her. He had been explaining the finer details of the equestrian parliament, using some diagrams from a small notebook. She nodded.
Truthfully, it seems like a system designed to get nothing done.
You aren't the first to make that observation, my lady. Perhaps once the table is established, we could make that a second goal of ours, reforming Parliament. He tapped his pen against his chin with a thoughtful hum. But alas, the islands will not give up their independence easily. We should focus on one lofty goal at a time. Rarity ran it over in her head one more time. Each island, no matter its size, was given a single vote on all issues, and a bill could be passed via a simple majority, and a bill required support from a 20th of the assembly to go up for vote. It was easy to understand at a surface level, but 20% of the vote was always reserved for the princesses, who, as far as Equestria at large was concerned, had been gone for centuries. And so with a fifth of the vote always abstaining, every island out for itself and fighting anything that might harm their independence, and the fact that there wasn't any organization in place for enforcing whatever did get passed, Parliament was effectively neutered. From the way Whitehorn described it, each year's assembly was used more as an opportunity for the island representatives to meet and network than guiding the development of Equestria. She sighed, watching the clouds roll past. There was so much that needed to be changed, and she only had one lifetime to do it in. Pinky's voice broke through her reverie.
Hey, look!
Rarity turned, spotting the airship that had crested the horizon. She couldn't see any details from this distance, but the plume of smoke swirling in its wake was obvious even from afar. She frowned, standing up.
Oh, goodness. Are they okay?
The balloon fell to the deck as all eyes turned to the distant ship, popping under Brownie's weight as he pounced. One of the crew ponies stepped up to the rail and raised a spyglass to her eye.
They're signaling,
she said.
Dead in the clouds.
Fluttershy gasped.
They need our help.
The other crew pony shook his head. Nah, boss don't want to bother. Rarity blinked, staring at the back of his head.
I beg your pardon? Those ponies are literally asking for help.
Bad luck we found them, he said, frowning down at the popped balloon. Orders are we don't stop for nothing.
That doesn't seem very nice,
Pinky said, narrowing her eyes. The stallion shrugged. Nice don't pay wages.
Wages are beside the matter!
Rarity stomped a hoof, beckoning to Whitehorn.
Come along, dear. We'll talk to the good captain ourselves.
She marched off without looking back. Whitehorn caught up to her a couple seconds later, his voice low but urgent. Countess, we're guests on this mare's ship. We shouldn't be questioning her orders.
I'll have none of it.
Rarity practically kicked the door to the lower deck open, ignoring his hints to quiet down.
Those ponies need help, and that's all that matters. I can't sit and watch while lives are risked over mere profit.
Whitehorn grimaced, but thankfully didn't push the matter further. A pair of crew ponies stepped into view, eyes widening at the sight of Rarity's expression, and leapt back out of sight as she stormed down the hall, stopped in front of the captain's door, and delivered a series of sharp knocks.
Captain!
She didn't stop knocking even when she heard furniture scraping inside.
Captain, I require your attention this instant! What?
The door swung open to reveal an irritated, sandy-coated Pegasus mare wearing a ruffled white blouse and a green shoulder cape just a shade darker than her mane. She glared past her bangs, meeting Rarity's disapproving gaze.
Your crew has spotted a ship in the distance,
Rarity said.
And they tell me that you've ordered them not to stop. Aye,
the captain said evenly.
It's not our problem. It is our problem,
Rarity countered.
You would want those ponies to help if the roles were reversed. But they're not,
the captain shot back.
So we won't.
Whitehorn leaned around Rarity's shoulder with an appeasing smile. My apologies, Captain. I know you're a busy mare with much on your mind, but the Countess isn't quite familiar with—
Shut!
Rarity stomped a hoof, cutting him off. If she'd had this conversation a month ago, then no doubt she'd have been surprised, even shocked, that anyone would be so callous with the lives of other ponies. But now she knew the truth. Equestrians didn't care about each other anymore. If you wanted them to do anything, even something that the youngest foal would have understood was right in the past, you had to take a different approach. She narrowed her eyes at the other mare.
Do you know who I am, darling?
The captain's lip curled back into a snarl.
You're a mare on my ship who I'd be in my rights to throw overboard if she tried a mutiny.
Rarity arched a brow at that, but pressed on.
I am Countess Rarity, last lady of old Equestria, wife of Sir Pontius, Baron Governor of Friesland, son of Duke Titus of Canthathusia, liege to many other powerful lords on all Talusha.
The captain blinked, losing the snarl, but kept her lips pressed into a tight frown.
What of it? Your hold is filled with lumber and crafts from all Talusha,
Rarity said, speaking in the slow, measured tone one used when educating the ignorant.
I know this because I cannot get the smell of wood dust out of my mane, despite several thorough attempts, and I expect your insistence on speed is due to a hope that you'll be first to reach harvest with these goods after the lifting of the siege. Now, I imagine you would profit greatly from such a deal, and even if you're not the first, demand for these goods will still be high for some time. I don't see what my cargo has to do with this, the captain said, but Rarity could see she had lost some of her bluster. This is my ship. That's all that matters. Yes, of course, your ship. Insofar as you and your crew operate it.
Rarity smiled sweetly.
Though the merchant lord who leases it to you may see it differently.
The captain's tail flicked behind her.
Get to the point, Mare. Very well, Mare. Though I'd advise you to listen carefully, as I will say this only once.
Rarity leaned in, dropping the smile.
If you do not turn this vessel around and help those ponies within the next 30 seconds, I shall make it my business to write to my husband in Friesland. He's a good stallion, a caring stallion who does not put the wealth of his pocket over the lives of his ponies. And not only will you never set hoof on Old Talusha again, he will see to it that every tradespony under your merchant lord's employ pays for your callousness.
She paused, letting her words hang in the air.
And I expect any frustrations about such business would come squarely down on your head.
The captain had gone stiff. She glanced uncertainly toward Whitehorn before meeting Rarity's glare once more.
You're bluffing. Lady Dahlia could take her business anywhere and Friesland would be the ones most hurt by it. Perhaps so,
Rarity admitted.
But I doubt she would appreciate the inconvenience, and I can assure you, darling, I do not bluff. You're down to 20.
The captain was silent for several long seconds, and for a moment Rarity began to wonder if she was right. She couldn't really know how many merchants she'd be asking Pontius to embargo with this threat, nor the economic damage that would be done by it, but it was the only card she had, and she had to play it with confidence.
Fine.
The captain grabbed a hat from behind the door, dropping it onto her head.
But once you leave my ship, I never want to see you again. The feeling is mutual, Captain.
Rarity stepped aside with a smile, leaving room for the other mare to pass.
It's good to meet a pony that cares for more than just herself.
Rainbow felt as light as air as she landed in the Argo Hall and pulled the hatch closed behind her.
Applejack!
She called, starting towards the cargo hold.
You won't believe what just happened!
A door clicked open behind her, and Rainbow turned to see Applejack's head, sans hat, leaning out of Flint's room with wide eyes.
Rainbow Dash, I swear to Celestia, Luna, my parents, and everything I can think of right now, if you've flown off and killed some pony else, I'm disowning you.
Rainbow frowned.
Wait, are you two banging again?
Applejack pursed her lips.
I really don't see how that's important here, Sugar Cube, considering y'all are covered in blood.
Rainbow cocked her head. She looked down and only then realized that, in her excitement, she had forgotten that, yes, actually, she was covered in blood.
Oh! No, don't worry. This isn't pony blood. This is yak blood.
She grinned and struck a pose.
I went out on a hunt with the crystal ponies like Toy suggested, right? And there were all these yaks running around. The big hairy thing that attacked me earlier was a yak, apparently. And then one of the crystal ponies was in trouble, so I swooped in and saved her.
She jumped into the air, doing a little loop for emphasis.
But then I realized one of the yaks was the same one I'd fought earlier, and I couldn't just let it get off scot-free, so I challenged it to single combat and cut it down with all the hunters watching. And then I ate its heart and everybody cheered, and now they're all calling me Yak Slayer.
Applejack blinked.
I ain't even sure where to start responding to all that.
Did you just say she ate its heart? Flintlock's head leaned into view. You ain't gonna start glowing and blow up the ship, are ya?
What? No! Ah!
Rainbow groaned, throwing her hooves up.
Can't you guys just, be happy for me? This is awesome!
Applejack sighed, exchanging a glance with Flint.
I'm happy for you, Artie. Really. Why don't you go get yourself a shower, and then you can tell us all about it?
Really? Ugh.
Rainbow shook her head in exaggerated disgust.
Fine. You two have your fun with each other, but you better show up for the feast.
She spun in place, grinning at Applejack's eye roll, and made for the ship shower. The sun was starting to set by the time she'd finished scrubbing dried yak blood out of her coat, and after checking with Saber to let her know she'd come back on time and get permission to set out again, Rainbow went looking for her friends. She didn't think Saber was interested in docking again, so if Applejack was going to attend the feast, they would need Twilight to teleport them down as a group. She couldn't wait to see the looks on their faces when the crystal ponies told the story of her heroism out on the ice today.
Twi! AJ, you guys in here?
She called, stepping into the cargo hold and wringing the last drops of moisture from her mane.
You guys don't want to miss the feast.
Twilight's voice answered from her room.
In here, Rainbow.
Rainbow grinned as she walked through the curtain. Twilight was standing in the center of the room, facing the entrance, her hooves held close together and her slitted eyes wandering. Rainbow arched a brow, picking up on her friend's distress.
Hey, you all right? I'm fine, thank you.
Twilight said. She offered a nervous smile.
I heard you went hunting. Yeah, actually. Did AJ tell you about it?
Rainbow straightened up, flexing her wings nonchalantly.
You'll hear about it tonight, so I don't want to spoil you with the details now. Oh, that's nice.
Twilight nodded a few times too many, tapping a hoof against the floor. She looked away, focusing on something only she could see, and then took a deep breath and licked her lips, meeting Rainbow's gaze.
I made you something.
Rainbow's ears perked up. From the way Twilight was acting, this had to be important. She sat down, giving the other mare her full attention.
What is it? It's... well... here.
Twilight's horn glowed, grabbing a plain cloth off her desk and pulling it aside to reveal a smooth orb of glittering white stone. Rainbow walked up to it, watching the way it seemed to catch the light and twinkle with a rainbow of different colors. She frowned as she saw the runes engraved into its surface, reminding her almost of a wide-open eye. Rainbow picked it up, feeling its weight.
What is it? It's an eye.
Twilight's words came out in a rush.
For you. For me?
Rainbow frowned, looking up and seeing Twilight watching her anxiously.
Like, for decoration? I guess the twinkling's kinda cool. No, Rainbow, not for decoration.
Twilight groaned, hanging her head in her hooves.
Why is this so hard? It's an eye to help you see. To... you know.
She looked up, gesturing at Rainbow's face. Rainbow cocked her head, a creeping dread rising at the back of her mind.
Am I supposed to put this in my wound? Yes.
Twilight nodded firmly. Rainbow waited for some further explanation, but nothing came, and the room lapsed into an uneasy silence. She looked down at the strange eye and was filled with an unexpected sense of revulsion. Why did she feel that way? She should be happy to have something to fix the damage Gava had done to her, right? Yet when she looked at the eye, she didn't feel relief. She felt weak. She felt angry. The joy of her victory during the hunt was suddenly swept away, replaced with the hazy, red-tinged image of a sneering griffin with a bloody beak. Her shoulders slumped, and her eye itched, and she wanted nothing more than to turn and run, to escape into the sky and fly faster than her thoughts could follow.
Rainbow?
Twilight sounded worried.
Probably because she knows how worthless I am. I thought you'd be happy. Huh?
Rainbow blinked, and the memory was gone.
This will give you your vision back.
Twilight continued, stepping closer.
Well, okay, not exactly. You still won't be able to see, but you'll be able to tell what's around you, even through walls or darkness. In some ways, it'll even be an improvement over before. Oh.
Rainbow wasn't sure what to do with the thing. She didn't want to hurt Twilight's feelings by putting it down, but she didn't have any pockets or bags on her either. She settled for looking back to Twilight, trying to ignore the weight in her hooves.
Thanks, Twi.
Twilight's brow knit with concern.
You don't like it. It's not that. I just...
Rainbow sighed, closing her eye.
I'm sorry, Twilight. I'm sure you went through a lot of trouble to make this, and I bet it works great and all. I wasn't expecting it. Maybe you could try it out?
Twilight suggested gently.
I haven't been able to test it properly without you. No.
Rainbow shook her head emphatically.
I'm sorry, I was kind of getting used to this, and haven't really thought about it in a while, and if I was gonna get fixed, I'd hoped I would be fixed. You know?
She grimaced, opening her eye, but half her world remained in darkness.
I guess that settles it now. Huh. I'll always be, just a little broken.
Twilight didn't say anything. Maybe she just didn't know what to say. Either way, Rainbow didn't want to look up and see her friend's disappointment. She turned away to leave, transferring the eye to one of her wings and paused in the doorway.
Sorry.
She left quickly, before Twilight could get out any response. She flew up to her cloud room and stuck the eye in the little chest she'd made for storing the few personal items she owned, then made for the nearest hatch. She was tired from the hunt, but not too tired to fly away from the things that haunted her. They had arrived at Harvest early in the day, and being well rested and with nothing else to do, Anna had suggested that they take care of the job as soon as possible. It should be easy enough. Find a way onto the ship, find the target, flash some fangs and talons. They could be in and out quick enough for an early dinner and still have time to get the lay of the land afterwards. That plan didn't last long. It wasn't as easy to find fish for sale in Harvest as it was in, say, Leviathan Wakes, but there were a few spots on the lower levels where it was served. The ponies had cheap metal platforms strung up on ropes and pulleys, and would lower themselves to just above the water to cast out lines or nets before being pulled back up with their day's catch. Anna and Gava had found a spot behind one such fish restaurant, sitting on the edge of a short metal pier with nothing but open ocean beneath it, and listening to the squealing of the pulleys as they shared a plate of fried fish. It also gave them an excellent view of the dragon scale.
Luna,
Anna muttered, shaking her head. Gava hummed, tapping a talon against the pier.
That ship is made for war.
It was not thought an airship built for war. Anna was no historian, but her father had ensured she'd had at least a basic education of pony history growing up. There is a brief era, centuries ago, where the islands had warred between each other, sending armies aboard primitive airships in hopes of asserting themselves as the center of a new equestrian empire. But such incursions had always carried with them hefty losses, in both lives lost and material. There was no easy way to land a ship on an island that did not want to be landed on, and after several devastating wars that saw dozens of ships carrying hundreds of ponies apiece fall from the skies before they even reached their destination, Ponykind had collectively agreed that war was a thing that belonged exclusively on land. They may jostle for economic supremacy or send agents to interfere with islands distant and far, but every ruler knew that an actual invasion of another island was tantamount to suicide. And so, ships were never built with war in mind. There were ships for trade, ships for salvage, ships for travel and hunting, but ships for war were relegated to the pages of history. Except, it would seem, for the dragon scale. Anna had done some asking around on the way here and had gotten a few conflicting answers about the ship's purpose. Some ponies said it was a warship, the pride of the Harvest fleet, ready to push off and destroy any vessel that might threaten the city's airspace. Others said it was just a historical piece, a walk-in museum that harkened back to a less civilized time. There were even a couple ponies that had disregarded it as little more than a tourist trap. It was long and wide, 4 times at least longer than the rock's screech had been, with a pair of gas envelopes to either side of the hull armored with thick metal plating suspended off sturdy trusses. A trio of huge, double-barreled turrets occupied the centerline of its open deck, all currently pointed away from the city, and the prow bulged out into a vertical hammerhead, with angled towers jutting out both above and below the glinting glass of the bridge on the ship's bow. The hull widened at its rear, providing mounts where 4 huge propellers sat idle, while a number of sails and fins protruding at angles from the balloon allowed for steering. It was a warship, and Anna would hate to be on the other side of its cannons, which is why it struck her as odd that so many ponies could be seen milling about the deck, swarming around the great turrets in a dazzling variety of expensive clothing. Travelers from both near and far wanted to see the last surviving warship, and it seemed Harvest was more than willing to indulge them, for a price.
Well, might as well get on with it.
Anna grabbed the last piece of fish off their plate and popped it into her mouth, kicking the empty plate off the pier to spin down into the waves.
Just like that?
Gavin narrowed her eyes.
You don't want to spend a few days scoping it out or something? Sis, we're gonna go scope it out right now,
Anna said, flashing the griffin a teasing smirk.
It's a public attraction, remember? We don't even have to sneak aboard.
Gava grunted as she stood.
They'll see us.
Anna smiled as she leaned into her sister, nuzzling under her chin.
Gava, I appreciate you thinking about being subtle and all that, but believe me, if I was worried about being seen, I'd have asked you to stay home.
Gava clacked her beak, looking around as if to ensure she wasn't spotted being cuddled.
I'd come anyway. We've split up too much lately. Good thing we don't need that for this job then, huh?
Anna broke away from the nuzzle, crouching low and flaring her wings.
Now let's get going. I bet they've got mango cocktails on that ship.
As dizzying as the city could be when navigating by Huff, it only took a minute of easy gliding for the sisters to cut across the open air, swerving around the lazy little airboats that drifted slowly across the city's underbelly like fleas on a dog. Anna landed first, startling a few tourists, and several more balked when Gava's heftier bulk landed behind her, buffeting them with her wings. Anna offered them her best unnerving smile, but somehow didn't feel the same satisfaction as usual when they shied away. The dragon scale was moored at the end of a long, wide stone pier lined with statues of propellers, cannon, and sails. Each one was flanked by a small plaque describing some historical landmark in the defunct field of military aviation. But Anna kept her eyes on the ship itself as they fell into the loose line of ponies filing aboard. A pair of Marines were stationed to either side of the gangway, stopping each party and collecting a fee of bits before directing them onto the ship. Their uniforms were elaborate and ostentatious, with polished black helmets crested by an ornate golden horn and a gilded ship's prow adorned across the forehead. Each one wore a long black cloak decorated with patterns of gold and silver that hung down almost to the ground and concealed most of their bodies. Silvered sheaths strapped to their shoulders completed the image, carrying daggers that Anna suspected were there more for show than battle. It was an impressive getup, and after a few seconds watching the way the Marines scanned the crowd, eyes simultaneously sharp yet half-lidded with apparent boredom, she determined that these weren't mere ceremonial troops. Despite their gaudy uniforms and lack of any obvious practical weaponry, these ponies were trained soldiers.
Don't cause trouble,
Anna said, glancing towards Gava.
Those guards aren't expecting a fight, but they won't back down from one. I'm not blind, Anna.
Gava rolled her eyes. Anna smirked at that, turning her gaze on the ponies waiting in line around them. Some looked like locals, perhaps lesser crew ponies stationed on the ship or workers that had saved up enough for a visit, but most were clearly from abroad, displaying several distinct fashions. Thankfully, all of them were pointedly avoiding looking at the big, menacing griffin in their midst, which made it trivially easy for Anna to relieve a couple of the more pretentiously dressed ponies of their bits. The Marines straightened up as Anna and Gava reached the front of the line. The eldest looking stepped forwards, his rank designated by a red scarf tucked into his collar. 30 bits each. Anna nodded, producing the required bits with a toothy smile. The guard's eyes never left hers, though she could see his subordinates glance toward her fangs.
60 for 2 of us, then.
Enjoy your visit. Guess leave at sundown. He stepped aside, fixing each of them with a meaningful look that Anna took as a warning not to cause any trouble.
Thanks, stud.
She winked, the other 2 Marines watching her with open curiosity as she led Gava up the gangway. The metal rattled under hoof, the departing ponies on the opposite side of the gangway shrinking back when they passed. Gava snorted, flaring her wings and causing an older couple to quicken their step.
Never gets old, huh? Yeah.
Anna flicked her tail, shooting a dark look at the couple's back.
It doesn't.
The attitude didn't change once they made it onto the deck. Anna took the lead once again, doing a slow circuit of the ship and playing the part of the interested tourist, while surreptitiously soaking in every detail of the security and layout. But she found herself getting strangely irritated by the wide berth given to her and her sister. Why was it bothering her so much? The way ponies would shoot her nervous glances and tug their foals closer whenever she got close. It's like they thought she was going to suddenly turn and pounce on their children. Normally, such an idea would make her snort and show her fangs to the superstitious parents, but for some reason, today, she only wished she had thought to wear a cloak. Despite the distraction, they were on a time limit, and Anna forced herself to focus on the mission. The ship was lightly crewed, with only a token garrison of Marines aboard acting more as curiosities for the guests than effective security. The public was given free rein to ogle the huge turrets, pester any crew they could catch with questions, and tour the uppermost decks, but the pony they were looking for was nowhere to be seen. Acting on a hunch, Anna tried asking one of the Marines where she could rent a room for the night. She was given directions astern, and after a short walk, she and Gava found themselves in what looked like a hotel lobby that had been transplanted into the center of the ship.
Welcome to the Dragon's Tail.
A cheery clerk mayor called as they stepped inside.
The most... Oh.
Gava rolled her eyes, stepping up to the mayor's desk. Hey, we need a room.
Oh, right.
The clerk smiled anxiously, setting a large notebook down in the center of the desk and flipping it open with shaky hooves.
Let me just... Oh.
The mayor froze as Gava grabbed the notebook and pulled it across the desk, spinning it around to face her. She clacked her beak and scanned the first page before flipping to the next one.
Which of these is free?
The clerk grimaced, opening her mouth as if to say something, but seemed to think better of it. Anna smiled at her as she walked up to Gava's side.
How much for a room?
She leaned around Gava's shoulder, scanning the pages as the griffin quickly flipped through them.
Would you ladies prefer a suite or one of our economy options? The suite is 5. Hold that thought.
Anna's hoof flashed out, stopping Gava from turning the page. She tapped once at a name written in small, careful script. Sapphire Swing. VIP level Glory Suite. Getting a room next to her would be too expensive, but a cheaper plan was already forming in her mind. She feigned surprise, looking to the clerk with a wide, befanged grin.
Hey, we know this pony. You don't mind if we go say hi, do you? Who?
The clerk frowned, trying to see the name Anna had pointed out without leaning any closer.
Don't worry about it.
Gava slapped the book shut and shoved it towards the clerk.
We'll find our own way. Oh, wait, you have a nice day.
Anna waved before trotting down one of the halls that split off the lobby, Gava at her side. Snickering at the fading sounds of the clerk's stammered attempts to call them back, she led the way around a corner at a brisk pace, glancing back to her sister.
Did you see the room map? I got a glimpse.
Gava kept her eyes forward as they walked.
You think that pony's gonna call security?
Anna shrugged.
Maybe. We'll just have to be quick.